Hey guys, welcome back to AFC Game by Game. This is the review of Arsenal's 4-1 victory over Hull City at the KC Stadium this afternoon. The perfect hangover cure is my best way of describing it. It was a scintillating performance from Arsenal. At times, a little bit frustrating, but we really did seem to reap the rewards of Jake Livermore getting sent off. We absolutely ran riot at times in this game. And Hull are a team that I love coming up against, despite how good and efficient they've been at this season, with Mike Phelan tipped to be getting a full-time job with them. Um, every time we played them, I feel so confident going into the game. We saw a very similar team lineup today to the one that played in Paris on Tuesday night. The only real change was Oxlade-Chamberlain being taken out of the squad for Theo Walcott, a change that I was totally behind. We didn't see Granit Xhaka get into the Arsenal team, but fair play to Francis Coquelin. He was immense today. The only player that I would have really considered taken out of the Arsenal team today for Granit Xhaka would have been Santi Cazorla. He did seem tired at times. He did put in a few rash challenges. You could argue he was lucky to stay on the pitch, but he was very good in the build-up going forward. Coquelin, I think it's worth giving him a mention because not only was his tackling, his ability so good in terms of protecting the defence, but what he did going forwards, the way he built up play at times, the way he linked up with our attackers, he really did seem to embrace that box-to-box midfield role which he's been deployed in this season, and it's not easy to go changing positions that simply. And I still think that his best position is playing in front of the back four in that N'Golo Kante role, just breaking up play. That's what he seems to be most suited to. But the way he's playing for us this season, he doesn't warrant all the criticism and the tirade of abuse that he gets at times, because he is still a very good player and someone that is certainly valued at Arsenal Football Club, in my opinion. We saw Alexis Sanchez line up in that striking role once again. At first, I was very frustrated to see that, but taking a step back, looking at it from another perspective, him lining up with Theo Walcott alongside him made him a much better player today compared to the Alexis Sanchez that we saw out there in Paris. He got 2 goals, so whatever Wenger's trying to do with him, he'll say that it worked today. For me, he's still not an out-and-out striker, and I don't want to see him lining up there on a regular basis. But you look at that front three of Iwobi, Alexis, Walcott, and despite there not being an out-and-out striker, there are goals. Iwobi does seem to be looking more confident in front of goal, even though he didn't technically score today. He looked a lot more fulfilled in front of goal, I would say. He looked a lot more confident in general. Theo Walcott, I thought he played very well today. Alexis Sanchez was scintillating at times throughout the course of this game. So there's a lot of goals in that front three, but I still would prefer someone like Olivier Giroud lining up with Iwobi and Alexis on the flanks. That, in my opinion, is our strongest attack. Mesut Ozil, I thought he had a quiet game today. He does seem to be growing into this season. I don't think it's worth reading into his performance too much. It's just a case of him getting a couple of games, and I'm sure that he'll be back to his glorious best. But it's good to see Alexis Sanchez playing so well for us, because at times he had a dip in form last season, but it seems to be whenever he does play for us and get 90 minutes under his belt, he seems to always either score or get an assist. Wonderful player to have in this Arsenal team. The defence was a little shaky at times. He didn't have a lot to do throughout the course of the match, but it is a cause for concern that chemistry between Mustafi and Koscielny is taking a little bit longer than expected to. Well, maybe I'm being impatient. I think I am in a sense. I would certainly argue that we need to see them develop sooner rather than later, but I am happy to give it a little bit more time to see them to evolve into what could potentially be still one of the strongest centre-back partnerships going. It certainly looks a lot better today, but the way Hull cut through us at times, you've got to remember this is just Hull City, a 10-man Hull City at that. If we come up against, like Chelsea next week, I worry about how easily they might cut through the lines. We need to have a lot more bulk in midfield in order to protect the defence. I would certainly start Xhaka and maybe Onana in that game against Chelsea. We need to overrun the midfield. We need to absolutely flood it. Yeah, I mean, all round it was a very solid performance. Petr Cech was worrying. I think he was certainly at fault for the penalty that we conceded. I wish he'd stop doing these stupid little drag backs as well, because at a point it's going to cost us, and I don't want that to be the case. I don't want him to be at the heart of any abuse, because he's still a fantastic player for us. He's a leader in this Arsenal team. But yeah, getting on to the first Arsenal goal, really well worked from Alex Iwobi. The ball fell to him, and then it was a shot that he took. It kind of, I wouldn't say it deflected off Alexis Sanchez. I think he meant to do the little flick, put it into the back of the net. 1-0 at that point, and we could have had a couple more. We looked absolutely devastating. We did get our second goal through Theo Walcott. It was absolutely wonderfully worked. We did have a penalty before that, though, before I do get onto Theo Walcott's goal. Alexis Sanchez made an absolute hash of it, to be frank. He really should have done a lot better with the penalty. It was Francis Coquelin's shot which went onto the hand of Jake Livermore to award us the penalty. And I think it was a little bit harsh on Livermore. I don't know if a couple of seasons ago that would have been a red card, but These are the rules, and unfortunately he was taken off the pitch. I don't think it would have made too much of a difference to the result, to be honest. We were so all over Hull at this point in the game, but unfortunately we didn't take advantage of that penalty, and we went into that second half. We quickly made it 2-0 though. Alex Iwobi with a wonderful back heel. Francis Coquelin involved in the build-up once again. Iwobi back heels it to Theo Walcott, who dinks it over the keeper to make it 2-0. Glad to see Walcott score. He played very well today, in my opinion. But unfortunately, we did concede. It was poor from Cech, as I say, bringing down Mbakani. As much as I do want to blame Cech, well, I don't want to blame Cech, but I do feel it was his fault in this instance. He made a nuisance of himself. Mbakani did play for the penalty, there's no doubt about that. He literally just ran into Petr Cech, and it's hard to see the foul there, but the penalty was given against us. They made it 2-1. Robert Snodgrass showing Alexis Sanchez a penalty should be taken. But then almost immediately after, we got a goal through Alexis Sanchez. Again, wonderful build-up play, wonderful goal from Sanchez. And then we saw the introduction of Granit Xhaka. The number of years I've waited for a player to finish off a goal the way that he did, just to drift from midfield and score it from about 30, 35 yards out. That is beautiful to see. And I know Ramsey scored that goal against Galatasaray, that instinctive goal. But it's just the fact that Granit Xhaka knew exactly what he was doing, drifting forward and just absolutely pelting it top bins. I've wanted the player to do that for so long. But yeah, great addition to the squad. I hope he gets a lot more game time because he's a fantastic player to have. And all these options we've got in the Arsenal team. I do think, in fairness to Wenger, the Cazorla Coquelin pivot did work for us today. I think both of them seem to be embracing that sort of box-to-box midfield role. Both of them can, one of them can go forward at one time, the other one sits back. Because Cazorla's defensive work is actually improving quite drastically. That's not something that should be undervalued. He really does have a good defensive backup plan in a way. But yeah, really good result today away from home. 4-1, 3 wins on the bounce in the Premier League. The first time we've done that since December 2015. Got to be happy as an Arsenal fan, considering some have said we've had a poor start to the season. And I'm looking forward to that game against Chelsea. Really am looking forward to that. And I wouldn't want to underestimate Chelsea despite their loss to Liverpool. I mean, they still look a very dangerous team, but I think the table in the Premier League is starting to show a little bit of true form now. City just look unbelievable. A 4-0 win today against AFC Bournemouth. Jack Wilshere making his first Premier League start for Bournemouth. So a lot of talking points today, but a big one being Arsenal's 4-1 win away from home at a KC against a very good Hull team. Let's not forget that they've done some great stuff under Mike Phelan this season. So we've played them at a tough time. But they do look tired, Hull City. I will say that. They do look very knackered. It probably didn't help that they were playing with 10 men for the majority of this game. But 3 points away from home, over the moon with that. And we've got Chelsea next in the league. But before that, we've got Nottingham Forest. Expecting to see a lot of rotation. Expecting to see Perez starting as striker. I'm expecting to see. I'd like to see Adelaide, a bit of Chris Willock in that game. But yeah, options here, there and everywhere for Arsenal. We can have a completely different starting 11 to the one that played today in that game against Forest in midweek. But yeah, get your thoughts on this game in the comments box below. Drop a like on the video if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe to AFC Game by Game. And as always, I'll speak to you very, very soon.